Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to speak about Saturn moving into Aries very soon. That's going to be on May 24th, 2025, and it's going to stay in Aries for quite some time. It won't move into Taurus, the following sign, until early 2028. So that's a really big chunk of time, right? So from 2025 to 2028. Even though it will retrograde back into Pisces. So this is going to be in September of this year. And then it will stay in Pisces all the way until February of 2026. So just some important dates here. But if we're looking at the whole cycle, we're really talking about now, May 2025, all the way until early 2028. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the potentials, the shadows, how to align with this energy, what is the mode of operation here, and really what is this energy about? What are the purposes? What are the evolutionary intentions of this new cycle for all of us? Of course, this is going to be showing up in your own personal life, especially if you have planets in Aries. This is going to be super, super important for you. And also if you have planets in Libra, which is the opposite side. Aries and Libra, they are each other's polarity. So when one gets activated, the other automatically gets activated too. And also the square. So that's a 90-degree angles from the Aries point, which is if you have planets in Cancer or if you have planets in Capricorn or both, those are going to be activated by the Saturn in Aries cycle. But before we get started, I want to give you an exercise. Think back to this phase of your life from 1996 to 1999. What was happening? This is the last time that Saturn was traveling through Aries. So now we can actually, compare what was going on back then versus what's coming up in our lives. Aries speaks about initiating a new cycle. With Aries, there's always going to be a new beginning, a new cycle. We're going to break away from the past in order to create something brand new. It's really about reinventing ourselves, recreating ourselves. So it's a time where we're going to be starting new cycles. So you can think back to that, those years from 1996 to 1999, which was the last time Saturn was in Aries. So what were the things that you were starting? Did you start a new projects, relationships? Was there any sort of shifting identity that you're doing something a specific way? You were a lawyer and then you started, I don't know, the university and the studies to become a journalist, or maybe you were single. Your identity was as a single person, and then you started a new relationship or you got married. So then from single to, married in partnership. So that's what I mean by shifting identities. Something new is starting. So think back to those years and see if what was happening in your life. And this is also about authority figures in your life, your parents, your mentors, your teachers, your boss. Was there any sort of power struggle or maybe some sort of a need to separate or stand your ground? And even if you were a child back then, even if you were very young, this is very relevant because Aries brings that energy of rebellion, defiance, because it's about claiming ourselves, our power. I exist. So maybe there was some sort of situation where you had to toughen up, where you had to speak up or stand your ground. So, yeah, think back to your life, see what happened during those years, see if there was anything significant. So that's the first exercise. The second one is I want you now to focus the attention on the last few years because, these last few years from 2023 till now, Saturn has been in Pisces. When Saturn is in Pisces, there is a lot of uncertainty. Things can be a little foggy. Things are not always clear. So there can be that sense of, you know, not always having a direction and maybe even feeling a little disoriented because the energy of Pisces is very much about the energy of, it's time to have the spiritual awakenings. It's time to connect with our spiritual selves and heal the wounds and let go and release, and forgive and open up our hearts and be more compassionate. So there's a lot when Saturn, in this cycle of Saturn and Pisces has been a lot about dissolving things, releasing things, letting go of things. It's the end of a cycle of Saturn going around the whole wheel of the zodiac. And now with Saturn moving into Aries, it's a new beginning. So the energies are going to shift dramatically. There is, Pisces is water, right? We're floating in the water when Saturn is in Pisces. We're floating in the ocean, and the wave is taking you. But in Aries, from the oceans, we're born in Aries. It's like we're born into fire. So there's action. We start to swim. We get on the boat. We take the wheel. So this is very much what this energy is about, this really big shift that we're about to experience. Um, so again, a reminder, if you have planets in Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, if you have planets in the cardinal signs, especially in the early degrees of cardinal signs, this Saturn is going to start to speak to you right away. And for those who have Saturn and Aries in your birth chart, this is even more significant because this means this is a year of a Saturn return for you, which is a milestone year. It's a rite of passage year in your life. All right, so breaking it down, Saturn is structure, it's law and order, it's what works, it's authority figures, our institutions, our governments, everything that we can, rely on, everything that gives us that sense of normal security. And Saturn is also how we build our lives. Saturn is the great builder. Saturn is the great architect of the zodiac. And it teaches us the lessons of discipline, responsibility, slow but steady work. And it gives us reality checks. When something is not working, Saturn is going to let us know, hey, you need to repair this. You need to do this differently. So there's a lot of mastery here. The message of Saturn is mastery through effort in constant commitment to whatever it is that you're doing. So that's Saturn. Saturn is entering Aries, which is fire, impulse, initiation, individuality, the courage, to initiate something new. It's really the warrior spirit in all of us. And it's about, again, creating new cycles, initiating something brand new. So in Aries, we let go of the past, we clear karma, we let go of old ways, we let go of old patterns, we let go of old relationships, old dynamics in order to start something new. So when you have this combination of Earth, Saturn, and fire, Aries, it means that, first of all, it's very creative. So it's about bringing that vision, the dream into physical form, into matter. That's Saturn. So really building things. And, through Aries, we take action, we take risks, we go, we start even before we're ready. That's the message of Aries. It says, okay, maybe you're not ready yet, or maybe you don't even have the full clarity of the plan or the vision, but go, take a first step. And with Saturn, we build, slowly but surely, brick after brick. So that's my first suggestion for you and how to align and navigate this cycle is, first of all, get going. Start. When Saturn is in Pisces, which it has been for these last few years, it's the time for thinking, for wishful thinking, But in Aries, it really tells us that we need to take some sort of action. Start before you're ready. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for, things to be ideal, completely and perfect, or completely aligned and, everything is in the right place. So now I can start. No. In Aries says new beginnings require action, not just intention. So, and really how, in Aries, we're really working with that principle that physical action is really the language of this physical reality of this world. So, whatever you want to create, whatever you've been postponing, your goal, a project, or something that you really, maybe even something that you don't really want to do, you kind of have to, you have to, okay, I got to start that at some point. I really know I need to start a diet and start, to exercise, but I really don't want to. This is the time to do it and ride this wave, ride this energy of the Saturn in Aries. Um, and again, the Saturn piece of it, it says that we need to bring discipline. If we want to build things, it does require work. And Saturn is our harvest. So whatever you start doing this cycle, maybe you won't even see results right away. But the thing about Saturn and Aries is that, and the thing about Saturn is that it will pay off. If you stay the course, if you bring discipline, if you're committed, if there's endurance, if you stay the course, at best with no shortcuts, you will get the rewards. You will see the harvest. It will be fruitful. So here you have initiative and strategy coming together. So it's about acting, connecting and acting on your passion and bringing in courage, the courage to start, and integrity. That's Saturn, integrity, strategy, plan. So be the warrior with a plan. Um, and wherever is, in Aries, there's going to be battles. So it doesn't mean that things are always going to be going smoothly and peaceful. There might be times where you feel blocked. There might be times where you feel there's a delay. Things are not coming together the way I want them to come. But that's part of the game here. Again, we need to build things, not just, you know, take a few steps and expect that it's going to come through. So it's about testing our abilities. It's about testing our plans. It's about testing our visions and responding to things responsibly instead of reactively, because that is the lower expression of Aries is it's acting on reaction instead of it's being driven by the emotions instead of bringing that higher mind and the objectivity. The other thing about this cycle that I spoke a little bit about already is about rebuilding identity. So we can also bring this globally as well, and of course, personally in your own life, but also globally speaking, collectively speaking. This is a time where we're going to see a lot of reconstruction of our identities, our sense of self, and that's going to be the identities of our government, the identity of our institutions. In Aries, there's always that question of who am I? And, with Saturn, it will probably bring a, um, a sense of who am I when things get tough? How do I navigate this? So we can see a lot of rebellion, even in our own lives, this sense of I'm fed up. I can't do this job anymore. I can't be in this relationship anymore. Or the opposite. I don't want to be single. There's going to be really depend on the context of your life, where the shift of identity and especially like look at where the Saturn is for you in your chart, where house it's in, because that's going to give you the clues to what is this new identity about. So we're going to see a lot of new beginnings, a lot of people starting new things. a lot of people breaking up, a lot of people entering new relationships, a lot of people starting new projects, new business. Aries is very entrepreneurial. So there's going to be new companies, new business, even new way of doing business as well. And and another thing about these past few years that we've been in with the Saturn and Aries, things, I've heard this from so many people, like things are not so clear. My path is not so clear. My direction is not so clear. I don't really know where I want to go or what I want to do. In Pisces, there's a level of fog. The veil is very active in that sense of you can't always see what's ahead. With Aries, there's a lot more certainty. Okay, this is what I want. Okay, I know where to go now. I know what step to take. And and sometimes maybe what I have to do is not necessarily what I want to do, right? For example, I don't really want to quit this job, but things are not working well, or this company is about to go bankrupt and I have to make a move. So, or even going back to the diet example, maybe this is a time where you're going to get, another example here. You discover that you have diabetes, so you have to cut the sugar. There's no way around it. It kind of sucks. You have to change everything. You have to change your identity in terms of how you are taking care of your body. But there is that sense of clarity. You know what the next step is. And if you take action as you move forward and you start this new cycle and rebuild your identity and adopt a new identity, um, that's where you're going to see results. So again, anything that you don't want to do but have to get started. And the things that you want to do, your projects, your trips, your new ideas, quitting something, starting something, this is the time to really take action on that. Personal branding, is also another thing that I want to bring into this. We, back in the late 90s, this is actually when we saw the early forms of social media and blogs. So there's going to be new ideas, new pioneering ideas, new business, like new launches, there's this huge entrepreneurial, creative energy to Aries, and we can tap into that. Um, and the other thing too, just a really good example is Saturn and Capricorn. This archetype has a lot to do with our ancestry, our heritage, our ancestors. And it's interesting how the Ancestry.com actually launched during this period. And it really became just a leader online and DNA testing and all of that. So really reflecting the drive in Aries to explore identity and in our origins. So that's something too, especially with another player that I will create a video just for that, which is also another planet moving into a new sign, which is Cancer. Jupiter's moving into Cancer coming up. So this connection of Saturn in Aries, which will square Jupiter in Cancer, um, also brings something important here about our ancestry, about where we're coming from. And maybe this is, first of all, a chance for us to reconnect, but also at a deeper level, there's something here, with the cutting away of Aries that says, done with this, now I'm ready for something new. There can be something really deep here about cutting cords, really speaking about our ancestry line here, our ancestors, their stories, their wounds, all the things that have, all those imprints that have been part of our line, our ancestry line, now with our actions and our free will and our decisions and how we move forward in our lives, maybe at a deeper level, we're really doing deep soul, like ancestral work here, where we're cutting something ending an old cycle, clearing the slate in order to begin anew for ourselves, but also in our lineage. So there's something really powerful here. So I do want to suggest work, spiritual work, reconnecting with your ancestry line, um, pilgrimages, maybe going to the places where they come from, where your line started or where they're coming from, and engaging with that, participating consciously, making decisions. Um, but even if you're not necessarily doing that, know that there's something much deeper happening here. And now you in your life with your free will, you have a lot of power to to do good, to really clear something for a collective and start a new cycle in how this lineage is moving forward. Um, And also, another thing is that Saturn and Aries, this energy does bring that intention to toughen up, to be firmer, like the general. It's like, let's get the job done. So, at a soul level, we're being called to strengthen our spirit. Saturn and Aries is all about strength of spirit, strength of character, never giving up, whatever you start, make sure you finish. It's really tapping into this energy can really help us to really go the long way, to really build something up and be determined and autonomous and have endurance to build our projects, to reach our goals, to climb the mountains and really to go all the way to where we want to go, all the way to the top and not give up. And Saturn and Aries can really help us build that immunity, build that resilience. So a lot of self-responsibility here is required. Aries is the self, is the I am, and Saturn says be responsible for who you are. No blame games. Take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your actions and your decisions. And claim your personal sovereignty, claim your autonomy, own your decisions. It is a time to really mature ourselves in our own authority. And speaking of authority, that's another important thing. Saturn rules authority figures in our life, our parents, our teachers, our mentors, our boss, our landlord, anything who is in a higher position, an elder, all those figures in your life, all those people in your life, but also you as an authority figure, you as a parent, you as a teacher, you as the owner of your business, you as an elder. So it is about strengthening your authority. It is about becoming the leader of your life. And there can be frustration with authority figures, but at a deeper level, because there can be fights, there can be issues, there can be even less flexibility. Worst case scenario, especially when we're speaking about government and institutions, we can see a higher risk here of imposing order, that militaristic approach that even at an extreme level, physical violence, physical, abuse, using force to impose your authority, your power. So we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of war. And this could be, of course, an actual war, but this could also be a symbolic war in whatever that Aries territories is in our lives. So let's hope we don't see the rise of dictators. Let's hope we don't see more physical violence and that there is, the changes that we see hopefully will be, especially when we bring the Neptune and Aries, war, protests, but peaceful protests without violence, because something needs to change. That's this message here of Saturn and Aries, Neptune and Aries. We need something new, right? We need a new system. And but the changes cannot be done through force, hopefully. And that's something that we need to be mindful of not using too much force in our lives, or we might experience this from our, the people who are holding these positions of authority in our lives, that they are not imposing too much force or being a little, coming on too strong. So we might need to rebel. We might need to say no. We might need to really stand our ground, and sometimes that might lead to having to separate and say, no more, I'm done with this. So be mindful of that. And then the last thing I want to mention is health. This combination, we need to be more mindful of uh, Aries rules the head. So we're talking about headaches, migraines, sinus issues, tension headaches, especially, it's highly likely we're going to feel more anger and drive. In Aries, things are intensified, our emotions are intensified. So we need to be mindful of anything that has to do with not releasing our emotions, suppressing things. So when there's anger, find healthy outlets for it. Find, get relief, exercise, move your body, join a martial arts class, join a boxing or class, or buy one of those big, the bags so you can punch or punch a pillow, but make sure you release those feelings and you don't suppress them. Because if you do, there's a higher risk here for all kinds of, tension, inflammation, headaches, tension headaches, a lot of pressure, burnout, anything that can, high cortisol levels, high stress. And so be mindful not to push your physical limits. And we're all more at risk for injuries, anything that's overworking the muscles. So be mindful during your workouts. I mean, exercise is a great source of release, but also be mindful. Don't overwork your body. Um, and while you're working on your projects, which can feel really, you're feeling ignited, you're feeling excited, you're like, woohoo, I can't wait, you're really writing this energy, which is amazing, but be mindful of not, getting the proper rest. Don't forget the hydration and eating good food and sleeping. Like those are really important for when we really think about the long term, the long run. Those are really important because the risk of Aries is we get so excited, we spend all our energy in the beginning and then we lose fuel. And with Saturn, Saturn and Aries says we need to really work on the long term here, beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so be mindful of adrenal stress, nervous system. Force yourself to slow down when you need to. Saturn is our greatest teacher. In Aries, Saturn is teaching all of us how to use our energy, because that's Aries, how to use our energy and our battery levels in a mindful way. If you notice frustration, anger, make sure this is a time where we can be experiencing mood swings, chronic irritation. Find ways to release this. Go out and, run, punch, kicking, scream therapy is amazing. You can close the door and just scream, just get it out of your system. Uh, but be extra mindful of bone and joint concerns. Those are Saturn domains, car accidents, falling, any sort of bone fracture here. We're all more at risk for those types of situations with Saturn and Aries, and bring supportive practices, mindful movement, yoga, head massage, craniosacral therapy, sleep and rest are amazing, amazing tools for us here. Simple, but essential. And anything that's also anger release tools, journaling, breath work, physical activity. And lastly, I could not stress this more, anti-inflammatory diet. That's so important because we're all more at risk for inflammation of the body with Aries. Um, and the other thing too is ethical issues. You know, with Saturn, we're always looking at ethical issues. The last time we had Saturn in Aries, this was actually the last time we had Dolly the sheep being cloned, which was this huge breakthrough, right? Aries, the pioneering, the something completely brand new emerging. But there's a whole question about ethical implications. That's Saturn. So here's another thing we can't be experiencing during this cycle, the rights and wrongs. Sexuality, that's another domain, you know, of Aries domain. So, you know, situations where there can't be aggressive, you know, aggressive situations. So, especially as we all need to be more mindful of our sexual boundaries and, you know, take precaution, protect ourselves, because there is that higher risk here of force, you know, someone coming in using force and really the right use of sexuality. And that's, I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself. But at best, we're going to see, you know, during this cycle, at best, we're really going to see new heroes emerging, those who will want to save other people, help make the world a better place. And unfortunately, also those who might want to create wars, but also those who want to stop wars, who want to do something about it. And again, it's such a, it really is tapping into this creativity, this new energy, this new fuel within, and making something out of it. Strengthening is it's about, you know, Saturn always asks us to master a domain. In Aries, it's about mastering, strengthening ourselves, strengthening our immune system, having the courage, taking the first steps, starting new cycles with commitment, with persistence, with hard work and discipline, and really become, you know, that warrior in our own lives, but with a plan, with a strategy. Um, so start your new journey, rebuild, recreate yourself, and do it brick by brick, slowly but surely. And and really connecting in with your own inner fire, because that's really telling you where you want to go and what to do and what the next step is. So on that note, happy Saturn and Aries for all of us. May it be as peaceful as it can be. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure to like it. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.